The key to a successful migration is going to be prior proper planning. And so here's some steps you're going to want to take as you're starting to think ahead and going through the planning phase for your migration. So as you've already heard, I'm Dave Henry with StorPool Storage. I want to take a moment to thank you all for attending this presentation. If you would indulge me for a moment before we start, I'd like to take a short, informal, and probably extraordinarily unscientific poll. So how many of you have used VMware as part of your cloud solution at some point in your career? Just let's see some hands. Okay, so if you've been looking into, considering, or even in the process of moving to KVM, raise your other hand. Okay, and now, if the whole migration idea makes you at least a little bit nervous, let's keep the hands up. Okay, we mostly confident people here. Well, that's good. So we're going to talk about things you can do to make that migration a little less scary. But first, for those of you who might not be familiar with us, we are StorPool Storage. We offer an industry-leading software-defined storage solution, provides unmatched performance and availability at significantly lower cost than other solutions. We've been in business for 14 years now, so it's a proven solution. Over 1 million end users trust StorPool with their data. Our customers typically are about 70% service providers of some sort, cloud service providers, hosting providers, managed service providers. About 20% of our customers are some sort of SaaS vendor, and the remaining 10% tend to be large enterprises. We're in production in over 30 countries around the world, and we are completely self-funded, profitable, so we're not beholden to the whim of any investors or shareholders. We're able to put our customers first. And for those of you who also might not be familiar, I'm guessing it's a larger number, here's a little bit about me. So I started my career in IT as a part-time student job with MIT's Project Athena, and then I became full-time starting in early 1987. Please don't do the math. Yes, I'm old. For those of you who aren't familiar with it or are too young, there used to be two companies, one called IBM and another called Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC. Those two companies came together with MIT to start a big experiment the first time they were looking to integrate computers into education. And so it was a very exciting project. For those of you who have been around longer, you'll know that no one ever talks about DEC anymore because, well, they don't exist. But so starting at the beginning, I was a systems administrator before that job title existed. I've spent years working in and architecting other data centers, and during the past several years, I've focused mostly on data storage, virtualization, and cloud. So we talk about this fear factor for that migration. So why are people afraid of this? I mean, it's not like there are actual monsters hiding in your data center. So part of it is that it's moving from what you already know, moving into the unknown. That's always scary. You maybe already know how to manage VMware. Are you going to have the know-how if you switch over to KVM? Everyone at your company and your organization is going to be asking you, well, is everything still going to work? What would happen if you lose data during the migration? That's a scary thought. What if you lose metadata and therefore making all the data useless? How much downtime are you going to have during the migration? That's another big question everybody worries about. And of course, everyone's going to be asking you, will everything still work? So here's a quick comparison of the services and products offered by both VMware and in KVM, along with their analog. Now, one of the major motivators for migrating away from VMware are some of the changes that have been made since they were acquired by Broadcom. So all of these highlighted products are part of what they call the VMware Cloud Foundation, or VCF. One of the changes Broadcom has made is that these are all now packaged into a bundle. And every one of the products that are highlighted right now are no longer available standalone. So you're either getting everything or nothing. And just as a point of information, those last three services listed, actually shared storage, data backup, and disaster recovery, are all built into StorPool Storage's solution, but we'll do a little bit more on that later. So when people are looking to move away from VMware, there's a whole bunch of reasons why their first choice is Linux KVM. First and foremost, the far lower cost. KVM gives you flexibility to choose only those services you want. You don't have to buy bundles. You're not spending money on anything you're not going to ever use. It provides support for multiple cloud management platforms like CloudStack, OpenNebula, OpenStack, or Proxmox. And KVM is not stuck with the x86 architecture. So KVM will work on like the ARM CPUs from Ampere. It'll also work with GPUs, so if you want your extremely fast compute, you can use that with KVM. And there are some very large communities out there to help answer questions and offer support. So for the sake of example, let's say you've got a couple thousand virtual machines and you're considering this migration. That's huge, not something you're going to want to undertake casually, and certainly not something you want to do manually, one VM at a time. So one of the biggest challenges in moving from VMware to KVM is that both virtualization solutions have completely different formats for VM configuration. So that is their metadata, completely different. So there are essentially three main options for making that migration a little easier for you. The least expensive and simplest option is to use one of the cloud management platforms I mentioned on the last slide. All of them have features built into them that will allow you to import a VM from VMware and then have it converted to KVM. There are several third-party tools and as well as professional service offerings. To do this, this will tend to be the most expensive option. And lastly, if you're looking for the least but most complicated option, there's a lot of open source tools out there. Unfortunately, none of them by themselves is a complete solution, so you'll be forced to use some sort of combination of them, and the vast majority of these require deep expertise in both VMware and KVM, which is not something you find in a lot of individuals. You tend to have one or the other. So the key to a successful migration is going to be prior proper planning. And so here's some steps you're going to want to take as you're starting to think ahead and going through the planning phase for your migration. So first, you want to map out all of the existing services in your current infrastructure to make sure that you're going to be able to have those same services in your new one. Second, you're going to want to make lists. KVM and VMware configure everything differently from each other. So you're going to need lists of your tenants, your users, your groups, your access rules, your permissions, so that you can then make sure that you can configure things the same in the new environment as they were in the original one. And lastly, you're going to want to document all the network services and any security rules you use, because again, they're going to be configured differently. So you definitely want to make sure you keep those security rules and make sure all the networks you're using are still going to work in the new environment. So the way to make things simple, you're going to just take a migration step by step. So first off, the foundation of any virtualization or cloud infrastructure is the right data storage platform. Selecting the right solution and deploying it in advance of the migration will definitely help ensure everything goes smoothly. You're going to then take all the info that you documented during the planning stage and perform the equivalent configurations on the new environment. Even before you move any VMs over, you want to make sure your networks are configured correctly, all of your users, groups, permissions, they're all set up, your network services are ready to go. And then to really help guarantee the success, you're going to want to deploy your backup solution and any disaster recovery you want to run. Deploy that. It's real easy to test it when there aren't any virtual machines to back up yet. So test that, get it deployed first before you start moving anything in there. Next thing you want to do to make things simpler is you're going to divide your VMs into groups. We suggest you move them into groups with VMs that have interdependencies. So your typical web applications might be that three-layer model. So you've got a web server, an application server, and a database server. You might have multiples of any of those for load balancing, but you're going to have those layers. You may have something more complicated, more layers, but all of those put in a single group. That way you've got everything moving together to provide that service. You're now going to, for each of those groups, you're going to migrate the metadata first, all of the configuration info, how many vCPUs, how much RAM you're using for each VMware, the ownership, network services, any access control information. After that, you'll migrate the VM images themselves, as well as any templates you're using. And then this is the most important step, is test everything like crazy. Just keep running tests until you're sure, mostly that you can make sure the people who depend upon you are sure that everything has worked. And then you're just going to move on to the next group of VMs. You're going to want to do it piecemeal because 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 VMs all at once, it's just not going to happen, and you're just going to make your life horrible. Take it a little bit at a time. That will minimize overall downtime. So one of the things we talked about is that storage platform. You're going to want to make sure you have the best performance available. Now, storage performance is a little more complicated than some folks make it sound like. So there's three main ways of measuring performance, but most vendors only talk about the first two. So the measurement of performance you've probably all heard about the most is IOPS, or I/O operations per second. This is different than transactions per second, or TPS, because sometimes a transaction might involve multiple I/O operations. So in this measurement, the higher the number, the better the performance. The next measurement a lot of vendors like to talk about is throughput. This is how much data can I move per second. Very similar, the higher measurement here, the better the performance. The last factor not everyone remembers to take into account is latency. Latency is the delay between when you make a request to storage and when storage answers. So we usually measure that in either milliseconds or microseconds. Now, personally, I can't tell the difference between a millisecond and a microsecond. I'm not that fast. But if you're throwing 1 million operations at a piece of storage, all of a sudden the difference between a millisecond and a microsecond becomes blatantly obvious. Those reports that used to take 3 days to run, if you're at the millisecond rate, you might be able to get done in a few hours. So in this case, the numbers are reversed. The lower the latency, the higher performing the storage is. And so why do I make such a big deal about performance? It turns out that storage performance is directly related to the productivity of an organization. So we can see here's some tests. IBM did a study several years ago where they looked at these things. And as you can see from this chart, the shorter the response of the system, the faster the user was able to respond and the more time was saved. This is because human beings think differently and approach tasks differently than computers and AI do. Your computer is going to look at like task 2, task 3, task 4. Human beings don't think like that. We tend to group things into an overall operation where we know that it might consider multiple tasks. So if the storage is slow, that's going to give me time for my mind to wander and my brain to clear out its buffer. Instead, if I'm getting the fast response, I'm able to do those tasks closer together as part of a greater whole. And so you can see right here, as you get slower, when you get down below half a second response time from storage, the user's response time to that is going to go up as well. This, of course, allows you to do more transactions per second if you've got higher performing storage. It's one of those things that feels real obvious, but it also isn't obvious until you've seen it, and then you can't not see it. What I find really interesting is this effect of performance on productivity happens across all levels of user skill. So your experts obviously are going to get more things done in an hour than your average users or your novices. But once you get below half a second latency, you can see that everyone has a small spike. And once you're below a quarter second, even the novices, the first-time users, they're going to see a huge spike in what they're able to do at the time. So directly relation to productivity. So lots of folks are looking at public cloud for storage options. We did some testing. We ran a bunch of tests. We used identical virtual machines set with the exact same parameters, so same number of vCPUs, same amount of memory, same test programs that we ran against them to simulate workloads. And so the only real variable was the storage that was backing those virtual machines. So you can see that most of the platforms started having latency issues once the workload went above 100 transactions per second or even 200 transactions per second. Catapult there in the bright green diamonds, they're a managed service provider who built themselves upon the StorPool solution. They were kind enough to let us test on their infrastructure. And you can see StorPool has managed to remain low latency even under that much heavier workload. So why do customers choose StorPool as their solution when they're looking to build out their cloud, looking to build out a KVM infrastructure? We provide storage as a fully managed service. This frees you of any grunt work of day-to-day administrative tasks. We can scale up to 60 petabytes or more in a single cluster while taking up to 2 times less data center space. This is because of our enhanced erasure coding as well as the data protection protocols we use. We're able to provide consistent latency under 100 microseconds, even under heavy sustained workloads. We can easily configure automation of tasks, priorities. We have native plugins for each of the major cloud management platforms. So you can then manage storage. You can then create the virtual machine inside your cloud management platform, define what you want your virtual disk to be, and then the volume will be created on our storage without you ever having to know anything about how storage works. We are providing 5 nines of availability, and that's measured across our entire customer base across all time. You'll hear lots of people talk about, hey, well, we designed ourselves for 5 nines. We're designed for 6 nines. Okay, well, that's great. We're delivering it. That's what you want to look at. How much is the solution proven? We allow you to take nearly unlimited snapshots with very minimal overhead and actual space used. We provide overall a significantly lower total cost of ownership. Because we're software-defined storage, we're not based on any specialized hardware. So you can get whatever server hardware is cheapest. You can get the storage devices you need. And this will all total to giving you that compellingly lower cost. So thank you for taking the time to attend this presentation. If you scan the QR code there, that'll take you to a landing page on our website that has all of our CloudFest relevant information. You'll be able to find our block storage buyer's guide. You'll be able to find a full copy of our cloud storage performance report. And we have a very detailed guide on how to migrate from VMware to KVM, along with many other resources. Be sure to come see me and the other StorPool folks in our booth. We're G20. As well as having great conversations with us, you can get yourself a really cool pair of sunglasses. All the cool kids are wearing them. And you can also follow us and keep up with us on social media anytime. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all in the exhibition hall.
Dave, nice job. Nice job.
Thank you.